Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. And AM 630.
WMAL. 7:07 on the Morning Majority. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham here, talking to Joe Digenova, our legal expert. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, everybody.
So, over the weekend, Super Bowl weekend, so that nobody would be paying attention, they raided Occupy D.C. at long last, took the tents away. The hazmat men were out in force. But Occupy D.C. vows to fight on. What are their legal options here? Are there any?
Well, theoretically, since the administration and the Park Service and the city are now enforcing the law, which should have been enforced from day one, because camping has been going on, and camping means that people there are sleeping. Now that their tents have been taken away, along with the various dead rodents and other debris, they're going to have to get a permit to go back. And the administration, through the Park Service, will have to put limitations on it and get commitments from them, and presumably will require a bond to pay for all the damage, because as you know, and if you've been by there, you know that the park has been totally ruined, and all the stimulus money that went in there to fix it up has been completely wasted. So they can try to get a permit, and if they don't get one, they can sue and they can litigate. But they're in pretty bad shape legally for the future. But the administration has created for itself a problem, which is they did allow them to stay there in violation of the law for a considerable period of time. And the occupiers may be able to argue that they're entitled to the same thing now. So we shall see how good the administration is legally at defending their position.
Didn't help their case at all that they threw a brick and hit a police officer in the head.
Well, as you know, there's always a group within Occupy the United States and Wall Street. There's always a group of anarchists that participate. Hitting police officers is a basic no-no in First Amendment law, and it creates part of a record that's going to make it difficult for them to get the permit that they want. So that type of activity does not help them.
Is it normal to have to put up a bond if you want to protest, or is that something that would be new just to this group?
Well, as you know, in many cities, the Tea Party was required to put up bonds to cover the cost of cleanup and damage. Bonds, you can put certain restrictions and requirements on demonstrators if they intend to do certain activities.
Okay.
Generally speaking, it's not required, but it can be, and then it's up to a court to decide whether or not it's reasonable.
All right. Speaking of restrictions, Kwame Brown, D.C. Council Chairman, has an interesting proposal that would say to any parent who is getting money from the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, so they're getting government money, that if you're going to take this money, then we're going to put some requirements on you, and that would include that you have to attend parent-teacher conferences, which sounds fine and reasonable, but also that you would have to attend more than 2 PTA meetings. How far can the government go if it's their money? I mean, I quite frankly don't really care if they're putting out their money or government money or taxpayer monies and saying, hey, you have to do certain things in order to get this money. But how far can the government go with putting attachments to getting, any kind of money, especially for needy families?
Well, public assistance, generally speaking, doesn't have many things attached to it. It's becoming a trend to try and bring attachment to it, especially when it concerns the children. Certainly with regard to aid to dependent children and funds like that, the government certainly has a right to extract a minimum amount of compliance with truancy laws and school laws that require kids to attend school. They already have that power through the truancy laws. This actually doesn't add much to it, except it is an incentive for parents to participate. And we know from educators and from studies that the lack of parent participation is one of the most underlying causes of poor performance from kids in schools. I think legally they probably have the right to do it. The question of how far they can go and how much they can require is obviously only a court can decide that. But I think they have the right to ask the parents, to require the parents to attend meetings with teachers and principals, especially if there's a discipline problem with the child.
Right, I understand. My concern more was the PTA meetings, which, in my experience, is nothing more than just a fundraiser for the school.
That's going to be one that's probably going to go over the line. Although you'll find teachers who say that is one of the few times they get to talk to parents in a confrontational atmosphere, and they put a lot of faith in it. My own view is that that's on the line, and it may not very well be that they can require that, but somebody's going to require it, and there's going to be a court case, and we're going to find out. It's on the line. I'm not sure.
Right.
Joe, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, speaking about the Egyptian Constitution or what may become of it, suggested don't look to the U.S. Constitution in these modern days. What you want to look to is the South African Constitution because it has more guarantees for basically entitlements and such. What do you think of her comments?
I think it's pretty sad, and I was really shocked when I heard them and saw them. If you've seen the video of it, it's pretty depressing. This is what happens, actually, when justices stray afield from their usual work of writing opinions and deciding whose rights are what. When they get involved in quasi-political activity, which this is, she's visiting a foreign country, she was being interviewed on Egyptian television, she had met with actually some of the ministers of the government, unrelated to the judiciary, and she was being asked basically political questions about the future of Egypt. I think this is very dangerous territory for a Supreme Court justice. I think they ought to stay out of it. I think her comments were degrading to the members of the court, saying basically that the Constitution that she swore to uphold and enforce and interpret was not worthy of a new country. I have news for the justice. All of the great Eastern European nations, which have set up constitutions, when they were freed from the Soviet Union, used the United States Constitution as their model. They may have modified it a little bit for their own individual ethnic and cultural reasons, but the basic document became the law of the world, for heaven's sakes. I just don't know what she was doing. Maybe it was jet lag. Who knows?
We can hope.
Well, man, the sad thing about it, of course, is that there's nothing you can do about it because she's a Supreme Court justice.
Except talk about it like this on the greatest radio station
there
in the world and make more people aware of how sad the comment was.
Yeah, really. It really was.
But could you argue then that her comments, because the South African Constitution gives more, I guess, leeway or sets in stone that there is a welfare program or assistance for people in the country that it goes from the government, does that make the case that some of the decisions that perhaps she's given, that she knows that if that has to be written in the Constitution, some of those rulings have been unconstitutional?
Well, I can tell you this. This is part of the deal of Supreme Court justices looking to foreign law to help interpret the United States Constitution. This is a big no-no in the conservative legal community. It's not in the liberal legal community. And this kind of stuff really just undercuts the credibility of the court. And the notion that you're looking to foreign constitutions for guidance on how to interpret ours is really kind of as I said earlier, I think it's very sad, and I think it's really unfortunate that someone of her stature was talking about the U.S. Constitution this way. It's not very helpful in the current political atmosphere.
All right, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, guys.